They always say the biggest decisions in life are made in quiet, expensive rooms. This one was made in a room so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum, and it almost destroyed everything. A glass-walled boardroom on the top floor of a skyscraper. The city spread out below like a glittering map. A long table, polished to a mirror shine. Men in suits, a few women in sharp blazers. Laptops open. Contracts stacked in neat, intimidating piles. At the head of the table sits Marcus Ellington, the billionaire. To the world, is that smiling face on magazine covers, the tech genius who built Ellington Systems from nothing, the philanthropist, the man who cares about people. But right now, in this moment, is just a tired man in his late 40s, with shadows under his eyes and a pen in his hand. He's seconds away from signing the biggest contract of his life. On his right is his longtime business partner, Cole Harrington. Charming, smooth-talking, the kind of guy who fills a room with his presence. On his left, the company's lead attorney, Richard Pierce, silver hair, thin smile, eyes like ice. At the far end of the room, almost blending into the wall, stands a girl in a white shirt and black vest, gripping a tray of coffee she's already finished serving. Her name is Elena Martinez. She's 19. She's nervous. And she is the only person in that room who knows that the contract in front of Marcus is not the one he thinks it is. Because a few minutes ago, while no one was paying attention, she saw it happen. She saw Pierce slide one folder off the table and replace it with another. She saw the quick flicker of greed in Cole's eyes. And she heard her own heart slam against her ribs, as her mind whispered, "Did that just happen?" Right now, as Marcus adjusts his chair and leans forward, pen poised above his neatly printed name, Elena feels her hands start to shake. Coffee cups rattle quietly on the tray. Cole glances up and catches her eye. There's a warning in his stare. A threat, like he's silently saying, "Don't even think about it." Richard Pierce folds his hands, that thin lawyerly smile sitting comfortably on his face, as if he's just waiting for something inevitable. Marcus clears his throat. "All right," he says. "Shall we make this official?" He doesn't know. He has no idea he's about to sign away control of his life's work. No idea that in the fine print of that contract, the one in the folder in front of him, are clauses that shift ownership, that lock him out, that turn him from owner to employee in his own empire. And no one in that room intends to tell him. No one, except the housekeeper's daughter. Elena feels something in her chest. Fear, anger, adrenaline, it's all mixed together. If I speak, she thinks, they'll fire Mom. They'll throw us out of the staff house. They'll call me crazy. If I don't, he signs. And everything changes. The narrator, me, wants to pause right here and ask you something. If you were Elena, standing in the corner of that room, invisible to everyone except when they need coffee, if you had just seen the billionaire about to be betrayed by the people he trusts most, would you say something? Would you risk everything? Or would you stay quiet? Because what happens next starts with 6 shaky words that are about to come out of her mouth. Marcus lowers his pen. Cole leans forward, eager. Richard's eyes narrow, waiting. Elena's throat is dry. Her voice barely works. But she hears herself whisper, I saw them switch folder." The room freezes. Marcus slowly lifts his head. "What did you say?" he asks. And just like that, nothing in that room will ever be the same again. Now, how did a billionaire, a housekeeper, and her daughter end up in a situation like this? Let's rewind. Before this day, Elena Martinez's world was much smaller. No shimmering skyscrapers. No glass boardrooms. No billion-dollar contracts. Just a narrow street, a small apartment that always smelled like cleaning supplies and fried onions, and a mother who came home every night with sore feet and tired eyes. Her mother, Rosa Martinez, had worked for Marcus Ellington for 13 years. Not in his office. Not in his boardroom. In his home. Rosa was the housekeeper. From the outside, Marcus's mansion looked like something out of a movie. Iron gates. A curved driveway. Stone lions guarding the front steps. Inside, the floors were marble, the ceilings were high, and the windows were so big you could see the entire city. But Elena didn't live in the marble part. She lived in the small staff house at the back, next to the garage and the gardens. 2 small bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom she shared with her mother. Still, to Elena, It had always felt safer than the noisy apartment they had before. The one with roaches, thin walls, and neighbors who screamed at each other at 2 a.m. When she was 10, and Rosa first moved into the Ellington property, Elena thought she had stepped into a fairy tale. She still remembers the first time she saw Marcus in person. He was standing in the foyer, on a phone call, talking fast about investors and data and product launches. He didn't even see the little girl peeking from behind the staircase. But to Elena, he looked like possibility, like proof that you could come from nothing and become something. Because that's what Rosa always told her. You see that man? Rosa would say softly, pointing discreetly when Marcus's face appeared on TV during news interviews. He was poor once. He worked hard. Now look where he is. You study hard, Mija. Maybe one day you won't have to scrub anyone's floors. Rosa respected Marcus. Not like a fan. Like someone who understood what he had built, and how easily people in his position forgot where they came from. But she would always add, remember, rich people, they are like fire. From far away, they keep you warm. Too close, they can burn you. We keep our distance. We do our job. We keep our head down. That's how we stay safe. So that became the rule. Rosa cleaned. Elena studied. And Marcus remained a name spoken with caution and a little bit of awe. By 19, Elena had done everything right. On a roll. Top of her class. Accepted into a good university. Double majoring in business and economics. The kind of kid teachers brag about. The kind of kid who stayed late to help others understand math. She loved numbers. Loved how they made sense when nothing else did. Loved how you could look at a spreadsheet and see a story. Growth, decline, risk, stability. Maybe that's why she found his world so fascinating, even from the sidelines. The stock tickers. The headlines. Ellington Systems opens new innovation center. Marcus Ellington pledges millions to scholarship fund. Ellington partners with global tech giant for historic merger talks. She read every article, not just because she lived in a staff house behind his mansion, but because, somewhere deep down, she wanted to understand how power worked, how contracts worked, how weak language and hidden clauses could change people's lives without them ever being in the room. You know that feeling when you sense you were born outside certain doors, and you're trying to learn how to pick the lock, just by listening through the walls. That was Elena. And then life did what it always does when you think you've got a clear path ahead. It complicated everything. The summer before she was supposed to start university, something happened. The scholarship she counted on, one based on a grant program, was suddenly cut. An email arrived. We regret to inform you. Her stomach dropped as she read it, sitting at the tiny kitchen table in the staff house. Rosa came home to find her daughter staring at the wall, eyes red. Mija, what's wrong? She asked, dropping her bag. Elena slid the email across the table with shaking hands. Rosa read it once, then again. Her fingers tightened around the paper. I don't understand, she whispered. They promised you this. You did everything. They said funding changed, Elena said hollowly. They had to make difficult decisions. I'm welcome to reapply next year. Rosa sank into the chair across from her. A long silence. Then, very softly, how much is the tuition? Elena already knew the number. She had memorized it. When she said it out loud, Rosa winced. It was more than Rosa made in a year. Maybe in 2. Mija. Rosa started, then stopped. Her eyes filled with tears. I can pick up more hours. I talked to Mrs. Blake. Maybe they need someone at the office. No. Elena cut in quickly. You're already working 6 days a week. I'm not going to have you killing yourself so I can sit in a classroom I can't afford the books for. So what? Rosa's voice cracked. You don't go. You stay here and clean with me. Is that what all your hard work is for? It wasn't fair. Life wasn't fair. And out there, in that giant house, the man they cleaned for was negotiating deals worth more money than they would see in 10 lifetimes. But Rosa had taught Elena never to resent that. Resentment is poison, she always said. You drink it and expect the other person to die. So Elena took a breath. There's another option, she said slowly. I can defer for a year. Work. Save as much as I can. Apply for more scholarships. Maybe I can get something next cycle. Rosa shook her head, torn. I don't want you to lose momentum. You're so close. Close to what? Elena's voice held a bitter laugh. Close to a future I can't pay for. It's better than debt I'll drown in. She squeezed her mother's hand. It'll be okay, she said, even though she didn't fully believe it. I'll find something. Rosa wiped her eyes. Tomorrow, I talked to Miss Naomi, she said. Maybe Mr. Ellington knows someone who needs help. You are smart. You are good with numbers. Maybe you can get an office job. Something not so hard on your back. Naomi Blake was Marcus's personal assistant. Efficient. Calm. The quiet strength in the background of every crisis. If the Ellington mansion was a kingdom, Naomi was the one who actually knew how everything ran. Elena had known her since childhood. Naomi was one of the few people in that world who looked at Elena and saw more than just Rosa's daughter. Naomi asked about her grades, her plans, her dreams. She listened. So the next day, Rosa swallowed her pride and asked for a favor. Let me see what I can do, Naomi said, after hearing the whole story. They were standing in the massive kitchen, where staff usually gathered. Rosa twisted a dishcloth between her hands, embarrassed to be asking. I don't want to cause trouble, Rosa murmured. I know Mr. Ellington is very busy, but if there is anything, any small position. Naomi's eyes softened. Rosa, this isn't trouble, she said. Elena is one of the brightest kids I've ever met. If anyone deserves a chance, it's her. Rosa's eyes shone with gratitude. Naomi thought for a moment. Actually, the office is crazy right now with this merger, she said. We need extra hands. Mostly admin tasks. Running documents, organizing files, data entry. It's not glamorous, and the pay isn't amazing, but it's something, Rosa finished. Naomi smiled. I'll run it by Marcus, she said. I think he'll say yes. Rosa hesitated. Will he mind? She asked quietly. Sometimes rich people don't like mixing home staff with office staff. Naomi's jaw tightened a fraction, like she'd seen that kind of class divide before and didn't like it. I'll frame it as a recommendation, she said, because that's what it is. And I only recommend people I believe in. 2 days later, Elena found herself standing in front of the glass doors of Ellington Systems headquarters, holding a visitor's badge and wearing the nicest blouse she owned. Her heart pounded as elevators whooshed open and closed, as people in ID lanyards hurried past her with coffee and laptops. Naomi met her in the lobby with a small smile. Nervous? She asked. A little, Elena admitted. You'll be fine, Naomi said. Just remember, nobody here is better than you. They just have fancier shoes. It was said lightly, but the words sank deep. Nobody here is better than you. Elena followed Naomi through open-plan offices buzzing with activity. She passed screens with charts, conference rooms with glass walls, people talking into headsets in 3 different languages. This was the heart of the empire, and somewhere on the top floor was Marcus. She'd only ever seen him in passing before, getting into his car, checking his watch in the foyer, talking quietly with Naomi about schedules. But hey, in this space, his presence was stronger. His photo on the wall in the lobby. His name in big silver letters. Ellington Systems. Naomi set Elena up at a small temporary desk near the legal department. Your main tasks, Naomi explained, will be helping with document runs, organizing physical files, and assisting with some data entry. You'll also be on call to take folders between departments. That might mean going into meetings for a minute at a time. Just drop, pick up, and leave. Elena nodded, trying to absorb it all. Be professional, Naomi added. If you're ever unsure about something, ask. It's better to ask than to assume, especially here. And, Elena. Yes. People can be impatient when they are stressed, Naomi said diplomatically. This merger is very high stakes. Don't take any sharp words personally. Do your work, keep your eyes open, and learn as much as you can. Elena smiled nervously. Thank you, Ms. Blake. Naomi shook her head. It's Naomi in the office, she said. And one more thing. She looked Elena straight in the eyes. There's a big difference between keeping your head down and pretending you don't see things. You understand? Elena frowned, not quite sure. I think so. Naomi's gaze lingered, as if she wanted to say more, but then someone called her name from down the hall. "We'll talk later," she said. "You're going to do great." For a few weeks, great mostly meant carrying stacks of contracts, labeling folders, running to the copy room, delivering documents to meeting rooms where no one looked at her twice. She learned to move quietly, like the office equivalent of her mother at the mansion. If Rosa's magic was making her work invisible, Elena's became being present without being noticed. And when you're invisible, you hear things. You see things. You start to understand the undercurrent beneath polite smiles. She noticed how people's voices changed when Marcus walked into a room, more careful, more polished. How some executives rolled their eyes behind his back when he left. How others genuinely seemed to admire him. She saw the tension around the merger, the late nights, the arguments in hushed voices, the name Harrington Global appearing in emails, slides, and folders. Harrington Global belonged to Cole Harrington, Marcus's friend, partner in this potential deal, and now, frequent presence in the office. Cole was everything Marcus wasn't. Marcus could be awkward sometimes. He'd forget to look people in the eye. He dressed like he bought his suits in bulk. He got lost in the weeds of technical details. Cole, on the other hand, was smooth, handsome, perfectly tailored, always knowing exactly what to say. He laughed too loudly, used people's first names a little too freely, and he always treated Elena like air. Not rude, just non-existent. The only time he noticed her was one afternoon when she nearly bumped into him coming out of a conference room with her arms full of files. "Careful," he snapped, stepping back. "Those documents are worth more than your salary." Then he laughed like it was a joke. Elena forced a polite smile. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry." He was already walking away. It was a tiny interaction, the kind of thing some people would shrug off. But if you've ever worked in a place where certain people talk to you like you're furniture, you know how one joke like that can sit with you for hours. The first time Elena heard anything actually suspicious, she was in the copy room. It was late. She was running overtime, helping prepare documents for a big meeting the next morning. The hum of the printer was the only sound, until voices floated in from the hallway. She recognized Cole's laugh immediately. "Harrington's got him right where we want him," he was saying. Another voice, sharper, cooler, responded. "That's not how I'd phrase it, Cole. We're not robbing the man. We're correcting the balance." Richard Pierce. Elena froze, hand hovering over the start button. She knew she shouldn't listen. She really did. But the words rubbing the man stuck in her ribs. She stayed absolutely still. Their voices came clearer as the copy room door stayed cracked open. "Call it what you want," Cole said. "The fact is, once that signature is on our version of the contract, it's done." Richard T-scared. "It's everyone's version, Cole. We're not forging anything. We're simply favoring the Harrington side. Ellington still gets his payout. He gets to focus on innovation, like he keeps saying. And we get majority control. It's a win-win. And he doesn't realize he's handing us the keys." Cole asked, amused. "Elision is not deception," Richard replied smoothly. "If he doesn't read past page 43, that's not our fault. That's why you pay lawyers." Elena's breath caught. They were talking about the contract, the merger, about Marcus, about giving them majority control. But that wasn't what she'd heard in the official meetings. In the slide deck she accidentally saw briefly on someone's laptop, it said equal partnership, shared leadership, mutual decision-making. She knew because she'd read those words. She remembered them. And yet here they were, laughing about favoring themselves in the fine print. "Relax, Cole," Richard continued. "We're not villains. He'll still be very rich. He'll be able to buy an island and code in peace. This company is too big for one man anyway." Cole snorted. "One man who didn't invite you in," he said. "You forget, you were my hire, not his. He didn't want to bring you on." "His mistake," Richard replied dryly, "which he will soon correct by signing the document his most trusted friend and lawyer placed in front of him." Elena's skin prickled. Most trusted friend. Most trusted lawyer. It sounded so wrong. "So we agreed?" Cole asked. "No last-minute changes. No getting soft on me." Richard's voice dropped. I told you, Cole. Once the folder is switched, it's out of my hands. The deal is done when he signs. Until then, you keep him distracted. I'll handle the paper. The folder. Switched. The words seared into Elena's mind, even before she fully understood what they meant. She stepped back from the door instinctively, her heel knocking into an empty paper box. The thud echoed. The hallway fell silent. Elena's heart leapt into her throat. The copy room door swung open. Cole stood there, silhouetted in the doorway, eyes narrowing when he saw her. Pierce hovered behind him. Elena swallowed hard. Working late? Cole asked, voice suddenly very cold. Why, yes, sir, she replied. Naomi asked me to finish these copies for the Harrington meeting tomorrow. Richard's gaze flicked to the stack of papers, then to the printer. Printer's noisy, he said calmly. Easily drowns out conversation. Elena nodded quickly. Yes, sir. I didn't hear anything. Cole studied her face, her shaking hands, the way she wouldn't quite meet his eyes. He stepped closer. You're Rose's daughter, aren't you? He asked. Elena nodded, pulse racing. Yes. Housekeeper's kid, he said. Been around the property a long time. There was something unpleasant in the way he said it, like she was a fixture. An old lamp. I hear you're smart, he added, almost casually. Scholarship student. Good grades. I try, Elena said quietly. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then you understand discretion, he said. You understand that what happens in these halls is above your pay grade. You're here to run copies, not opinions. Richard chuckled softly. Come on, Cole, he murmured. The girl just wants to keep her job. Cole tilted his head. That's right, isn't it? He asked Elena. You want to keep your job? Your mother's job? The nice little staff house? A flash of anger shot through Elena's chest, but she kept her voice steady. Yes, sir. Good, Cole said. Then you'll remember one thing. He leaned in so close she could smell his cologne. You didn't hear anything. He straightened. Have a good night, he said, already walking away. Richard's eyes lingered on her a moment longer. Then he followed. The door swung shut. The hum of the printer suddenly sounded too loud. Elena stood there, hands shaking, staring at the grain of the wood table. You ever had one of those moments where you know you just heard something important, something dangerous, but every survival instinct in your body is screaming at you to pretend it never happened? That was Elena. She didn't sleep that night. In the staff house, lying in the narrow bed she'd grown up in, she stared at the ceiling while her mother's soft snores drifted through the wall. She replayed the conversation over and over. Once the folder is switched, he doesn't read past page 43. You're here to run copies, not opinions. Fear whispered. Stay out of it. It's not your world. You're the housekeeper's daughter. You don't belong in that boardroom. If you make noise, they'll throw you out like trash. But something else, quieter, kept tugging at her. That same voice from when she was a kid, watching Marcus's interviews on TV. If people like you never speak up, who will? The next morning, Naomi noticed. She always noticed. You look tired, she murmured as they passed in the hallway. I'm fine, Elena lied. Naomi raised an eyebrow. Fine, she repeated slowly. That word always means the opposite. Elena hesitated. Part of her wanted to spill everything right there. To say, I heard Cole and Richard. I think they're planning something. Something about swapping folders and giving Harrington control. But fear was a heavy hand on her shoulder. What if Naomi thought she was overreacting? What if Naomi told Marcus, and he brushed it off as paranoid? What if it all backfired on her mother? Just long night, Elena said weakly. A lot of copying. Naomi studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, she said. If you do remember something that's not fine, my door is open. She walked away, heels clicking on the floor. Elena watched her go, a knot tightening in her stomach. The days leading up to the contract signing blurred into one frantic rush. Elena's tasks multiplied. More documents, more folders, more trips between departments. She started noticing something specific, certain documents, marked with draft, that had one set of terms, and others, almost identical, with slightly different language. Changing joint control to majority control. Mutual consent to reasonable decision by primary shareholder. At first, she thought it was normal. Lawyers revise things constantly, right? But then she started seeing a name pop up in the margins. Orion Holdings. It sounded like nothing, an innocuous shell. But every time that name appeared, the percentages shifted in Harrington's favor. She caught a glimpse of one clause while waiting in the hallway, holding the folder. If Orion Holdings, an entity controlled by Harrington Global, acquires X percentage of shares, it triggers an automatic transfer of certain voting rights. She frowned. Wait, wasn't this supposed to be a 50-50 partnership? Why was there a clause that allowed one side to accumulate more power quietly? She pulled out her phone, snapping a quick, blurry photo of the page, just in case. Her heart raced. She wasn't stupid. She knew she was skating on thin ice, even just by glancing at those terms. But numbers had always been her language. She could see the story they told. This wasn't a merger. It was an ambush. At home, she tried to talk to her mother. Mom, have you ever felt like something really wrong was happening, and you were the only one who saw it? She asked one evening, while they sat at the small table eating rice and beans. Rosa looked up, weary. In this world, she said softly. Every day, Mija. No, I mean, Elena pushed her food around with her fork. At work. Something specific. Something that could hurt someone. Rosa's eyes sharpened. Someone hate you? She asked immediately, defensive. No, Elena said quickly. Not like that. Just business stuff. Deals. Contracts. Rosa's shoulders sagged with relief, but her face stayed serious. She put her fork down. Elena, she said quietly, we are not part of their world. We clean up after their world. That's all. What if their world hurts people? Elena pushed. Rosa sighed deeply. Then their lawyers fight, she said. Their rich friends stand on one side or the other. And we keep cleaning. We do not get involved. Because when elephants fight, who dies? The grass. Elena frowned. So we just watch. We survive, Rosa replied. That is what people like us do. We survive. It wasn't a cruel answer. It wasn't cold. It was tired. The kind of tired that comes from seeing too much and having too little power to change any of it. But what if, Elena's throat tightened, what if the person getting hurt isn't like them? What if is kind of one of the good ones? Rosa's eyes softened. You're talking about Mr. Ellington, she said. Elena blinked. How did you? I see how you look at him on TV, Rosa said gently. Not like a famous person. Like, maybe he is proof that the world can be fair sometimes. She smiled sadly. Maybe he was raised poor, she said. Maybe he knows how it feels to struggle. But Mija, he is still a billionaire now. He is not powerless. You are. The words felt like a slap. You're saying I should do nothing, Elena whispered. I'm saying, Rosa answered slowly, that if you stand between rich men and their money, they will crush you without seeing your face. And they will not even feel bad. I'm saying I don't want you to be crushed. Silence. Then, softer. If you're still watching this story, tell me in the comments, would you listen to your mother here? Or would you do what your heart is already screaming at you to do? Because Elena's heart, it wasn't quiet, and the day of the signing was coming. Fast. The morning of the signing felt different from the moment Elena stepped into the building. Security was tighter. There were men in darker suits in the lobby, speaking quietly into earpieces. Cameras seemed to be everywhere. The elevators were busier than usual, filled with people in high-quality fabric, polished shoes, perfect hair. The words closing day were plastered on digital screens in the reception area. In the boardroom, around midday, the final contract was scheduled to be signed. Elena's role. Small. Insignificant, on paper. She was handed a simple instruction by someone from admin. Intine, take these refreshments up to the boardroom at noon, the woman said, not even looking at her name tag. Make sure there's enough coffee. And be invisible. Yes, Elena murmured. Be invisible. She was good at that. But as she rode the elevator up to the top floor, balancing the tray of coffee cups and water bottles, her stomach churned. She could feel something coming. The doors opened onto a corridor lined with glass walls. At the end, the boardroom. Voices drifted through the crack under the door. She took a deep breath and pushed it open with her shoulder. There they were. Marcus at the head of the table. Naomi standing behind him, tablet in hand. Cole on the right, relaxed and smiling too widely. Pierce near the corner, with a black leather folder in front of him. There were others, board members, financial advisors, a representative from Harrington Global. Elena walked in quietly and started placing coffee cups near each person, like she had 100 times in smaller meetings. No one noticed her. Also, she thought. As she moved past Pierce, she saw something. On the table next to him lay 2 identical black folders, one slightly thicker than the other. Pierce's hand rested casually on one. His eyes flicked to Marcus, then to Cole, as they laughed about something. And in that tiny gap, one of those moments that last a second and forever at the same time, Pierce's hand shifted. He slid the thicker folder forward, pulled the thinner one back, like a magician swapping decks of cards mid-trick. Elena's breath caught. There it was. The folder switch. He did it like he'd done it 1,000 times. Smooth. Unremarkable. If you blinked, you'd miss it. She almost did. But she didn't. Her tray wobbled. A cup clinked. No one looked. Except Cole. He glanced up. Their eyes met. A flash of recognition. He knew she'd seen. His smile tightened for just a second before he turned back to Marcus. Time seemed to slow as Elena finished placing the cups and retreated to the corner of the room, near the door. Her mind spun. Do something. Do nothing. You'll ruin your life. He'll lose his company. Her palms were slick with sweat. Naomi caught her eye briefly, frowning slightly at the strained look on Elena's face. But there was no time to signal, no time to speak, because Marcus was reaching for the folder. Pierce slid it towards him with a small, practiced gesture. This is the final version, Pierce said smoothly. Reviewed and approved by both legal teams. We stand by every line. I'm sure you do, Marcus said lightly, flipping through the pages. Elena felt dizzy. She watched his fingers that had typed the first line of code that started all this, skim over paragraphs and clauses. He wasn't reading it all. He couldn't. No one could read that much in a few seconds. He was looking for key headings, signature lines, trusting his people, trusting the man on his right, the lawyer on his left, trusting the system he'd built. You know that moment where you want to scream, but the sound is stuck somewhere between your chest and your throat. That's where Elena was, in that sticky, suffocating place between terror and courage. Marcus reached the last page, the one with his printed name. He picked up the pen, and somewhere deep inside her, something snapped. Her mother's word face flashed through her mind. Naomi's quiet words, there's a difference between keeping your head down and pretending you don't see things. Cole's smirk. Pierce's folder switch. The phrase Orion Holdings burned across her memory. She stepped forward. She didn't plan to. Her body just moved. Her voice came out in a whisper, but in that silent room, it sounded loud enough to shatter the windows. I saw them switch folder. Every head turned. The pen paused. Silence. Marcus's brow furrowed. He looked up slowly. I'm sorry, he said. His tone wasn't angry. Not yet. Just surprised. Confused. Cole's face morphed in an instant, from relaxed to furious. Richard's eyes sharpened like knives. Naomi stared at Elena, alarmed. Elena felt suddenly very, very small. But she'd already jumped. There was no going back. She swallowed hard. I apologized, sir, she stammered. I shouldn't have spoken. I saw. What did you see? Marcus asked, his voice calm but firm. Everyone in that room was now looking at the girl in the black vest. The housekeeper's daughter. The intern. The nobody. Elena's heart hammered. I saw Mr. Pierce switch the folder, she said, forcing the words out. Right before you reached for it. The one in front of you. It might not be the one you think it is. Cole scoffed. Oh, for God's sake, he said, pushing back his chair. Marcus, are we really going to entertain conspiracy theories from a catering staff now? Rosa's warning flashed in Elena's mind. When elephants fight, the grass dies. She could feel every blade of grass in her soul bending under the pressure. But she didn't back down. I'm not catering staff, she said, voice trembling. I work in administration, and I've been helping run drafts all week. I've seen versions of that contract. Some of them had Orion Holdings listed in the control clauses. Others didn't. I overheard. Enough, Pierce snapped, his composure cracking for just a moment. This is highly inappropriate. Young lady, you are out of line. You've clearly misunderstood internal legal discussions that are none of your concern. Marcus's eyes flicked from Pierce to Elena. Is that true? He asked her quietly. Have you misunderstood? Elena took a shaky breath. You told the press this merger was equal, she said, that you and Harrington Global would share control. But the drafts I saw with Orion Holdings, they shifted control. If you signed the wrong one, you might be giving them more than you think. Cole slammed his palm on the table. This is outrageous, he barked. Marcus, this is slander. From a child. She probably saw a preliminary draft. We made dozens of revisions. Pierce, tell him. Pierce regained his smoothness with effort. Of course, he said. Marcus, there were early versions with various structures. That's standard. But this, he tapped the folder, is the agreed final. The Orion mechanism is gone. We cut it days ago. If this young woman was snooping around the copy room, she might have seen something old and drawn the wrong conclusion. It's unfortunate, but it's not illegal. His gaze settled on Elena like a judge's gavel. And speaking of illegal, he added, there are confidentiality agreements in place. Her admission that she has been examining contracts she had no clearance to read, that's grounds for termination. Termination. Not just a job. Her mother's home. Her future. You still with me? If you are, drop a still watching in the comments, because this is the kind of moment that makes or breaks a person. Elena's hands shook. But she remembered something. The photo on her phone. Her only proof that she wasn't imagining things. Mr. Ellington, she said, carefully using his name. I know I'm nobody in this room. I know I'm not supposed to speak. But I took a picture of one of the pages a few days ago because something felt wrong. I shouldn't have, I know, but... You what? Pierce hissed. Elena flinched. Marcus raised a hand. Let her finish, he said quietly. You can look at it, Elena said, pulling her phone from her pocket with shaking fingers. If I'm wrong, I'll leave. You'll never see me again. But if I'm right... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Marcus held out his hand. Let me see it, he said. Elena walked around the table, feeling each step like walking across hot coals. She placed the phone in his palm, opened to the blurry photo. He zoomed in. His eyes moved left to right, scanning, then stopped. Something behind them changed. He glanced at Pierce. How old is this draft? He asked, his tone deceptively mild. Pierce adjusted his tie. It's impossible to say, he replied smoothly. Dozens of near-identical drafts passed through the system. Anyone could have printed something. The important thing is that Orion is not in the final contract. And that's what's in front of you. Marcus stared at him for a long moment, then at the folder. Then, slowly, at the security camera in the corner of the room. Naomi, he said softly, without taking his eyes off the camera. When were the last contract drafts printed? Naomi, who had been watching this whole exchange with growing unease, shifted her tablet. Yesterday evening, she replied. Final sets were printed at 7:32 p.m. by the legal department printer on the 14th floor. Marcus nodded. And who had access? He asked. Legal team, Naomi said. Pierce, his associates, a few interns helping with collating, plus admin runners. Security, Marcus said, turning his attention to the doorway. A guard stepped in from the hall, as if he'd been waiting. Yes, sir. I want footage from the 14th floor copy room from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. yesterday, Marcus said. Bring it here. Now. Pierce shifted in his seat. Marcus, this isn't necessary, he said, a little too quickly. We are wasting time. Harrington's team has a schedule. So do we. Cole nodded vigorously. Exactly, he added. This is humiliating. We're interrogating your own staff based on a photo taken by a girl who admits she violated policy. This is ridiculous. Marcus finally looked directly at him. "Cole," he said, "if the contract in front of me is as straightforward as you claim, a quick review will only vindicate you. If not—" He let the sentence trail off. There was steel in his voice now. Something hardened. You know that moment when you realize someone you thought was soft actually has a spine made of iron? That was starting to show. They sat in tense silence for a few minutes. No one drank their coffee. No one spoke. Elena stood near the wall, trying not to hyperventilate. She'd done it. She'd jumped into the fire. Now she just had to pray she didn't burn. The security guard returned with a tablet and a small remote. "We pulled the footage, sir," he said. "It's queued up." "Put it on the screen," Marcus instructed. A projector flickered to life. The lights dimmed slightly. On the screen, grainy footage appeared of the 14th floor copy room. Timestamp, 7:16 p.m. They watched in silence as staff moved in and out, interns carrying stacks of paper, admin assistants. Then, around 7:29 p.m., Pierce entered the frame. He was alone. He loaded papers into the machine, printed, collected them, stopped, looked around. Then, clear as day, he pulled two nearly identical black folders from his bag. One was fuller, the other thinner. He opened both, seemed to switch pages between them, closed them again, and placed them on the table. A few minutes later, Cole entered the room, laughing about something on his phone. Pierce slid one of the folders over to him. They leaned over it together, their faces serious. There was no audio, but you didn't need it. Their body language said enough. After a moment, they shook hands. Cole took one folder. Pierce took the other. Then they looked up, as if remembering the camera. Both smiled. Too widely. The recording ended. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Elena felt the air leave her lungs. There it was. Proof. Not just her word. Marcus sat very, very still. His knuckles were white where his hand clenched the pen. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "Richard," he said, "what are we looking at?" Pierce cleared his throat. "This is being taken out of context," he said. "We were simply ensuring the correct version would be present in the morning. It's standard practice to compare drafts." "And the folder you handed me just now," Marcus asked, "is which one?" "The final," Pierce said firmly. "The one we approved together. The one that reflects what we agreed." Naomi leaned forward. "Marcus," she said quietly, "you haven't signed anything yet. You can take time to review." "Exactly," Cole cut in. "Review. Privately. Away from this spectacle. We've worked on this for months. Are you really going to throw it away because a staff girl panicked over legal language she doesn't understand?" Elena flinched at staff girl. But she stayed quiet. She'd said her piece. Now it was out of her hands. Marcus looked at Cole for a long, long moment. "How long have we known each other?" he asked. Cole hesitated. 15 years, he said. "Since the early investment rounds." "And in those 15 years," Marcus continued, "have I ever given you reason to think I don't value honesty?" Cole opened his mouth, then shut it. "We're being honest," he said finally. "This deal is good for both of us. You're letting some kid." Marcus held up a finger. "Don't talk about her like she's not in the room," he said. His tone had changed. Colder. "I may not remember every face in this building," he went on, "but I recognize Rosa's daughter. She grew up in my house. She helped her mother clean my floors." He glanced at Elena. "You did, didn't you?" he asked. Elena startled. "Yes, sir," she said. "Sometimes, when I was younger." "You know what it means to work quietly," Marcus said to the room. "Without recognition, without credit. People like that don't risk everything lightly." He turned back to Cole and Pierce. "If she's wrong," he said, "it'll show in the documents. And if she's right—" He exhaled slowly. "If she's right, then the question is not whether this deal is good. The question is whether I can ever trust either of you again." What happened next didn't all fit into that one room. Lawyers were called in. The meeting was adjourned temporarily. Harrington's representatives were escorted to a waiting area with expensive coffee and tight smiles. Elena was asked to step out and wait in the hallway. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else as she walked out of the boardroom. Naomi followed her. "Elena," she said softly, once the door clicked shut behind them. "Are you okay?" Elena laughed once, a brittle sound. "No," she admitted. "No, I don't think I am." Naomi's face softened. "You were brave in there," she said. "Terrified, I'm guessing. But brave." Elena swallowed. "I probably just destroyed our lives," she whispered. "Cole threatened my mom's job. Pierce mentioned confidentiality. They're going to say I'm the problem, that I violated policy." Naomi shook her head. "Let them try," she said. "I've got your back. And so does the truth." She put a hand on Elena's shoulder. "Go down to my office," she instructed. "Wait there. Don't talk to anyone unless it's me. And Elena." "Yes." "I'm proud of you," Naomi said quietly. Elena blinked back tears. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking. Downstairs, in the mansion, Rosa had no idea any of this was happening. Not yet. She vacuumed the living room, straightened cushions, dusted shelves. In her pocket, her phone buzzed with a text. From Elena. "Mom, I did something. Might be in trouble. But it was the right thing. I think." Rosa stared at the screen. Her heart lurched. She typed quickly. "What happened? Are you okay? Where are you?" No reply. She dialed. No answer. Panic rose in her chest. When you're a parent, you know that special brand of terror when your kid says, "I might be in trouble," and then goes silent. Rosa paced the kitchen, wringing her hands. Finally, she called Naomi. "Miss Blake," she said, voice shaking when the call connected. "It's Rosa. Is Elena okay? She sent me a message and now she's not answering. Please, tell me she's okay." On the other end, Naomi took a breath. "She's safe," Naomi said. "But things are complicated." Rosa's knees went weak. "Complicated how?" she whispered. She spoke up in a meeting, Naomi said. About something important. Something that needed to be said. It took a lot of courage. Rosa closed her eyes. "Oh, Dios Maya," she breathed. "She did the right thing, Rosa," Naomi said firmly. "No matter what some people may say today." "That right thing doesn't pay rent," Rosa said, tears spilling over. "They can fire us. Throw us out. We have nowhere to go." Naomi hesitated. "I'm on my way to talk to Marcus," she said. "I'll do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. I just wanted you to know your daughter is okay. She's scared, but she did good." Rosa hung up and sank onto a kitchen chair, hands trembling. "Madre de Dios," she whispered. "Please, protect my girl." Hours passed. In Naomi's office, Elena sat on a small couch, staring at a wall that had photos of company events, awards, and newspaper clippings in frames. Her phone buzzed with texts from her mother. She wanted to reply, but Naomi had told her to wait, to not talk to anyone. She picked at a loose thread on her sleeve. In the distance, she could hear doors opening and closing, muffled voices, hurried footsteps. She wondered if she'd just caused the collapse of a multi-billion-dollar deal. She wondered if they'd sue her. She wondered if she'd have to leave the staff house by nightfall. At some point, she realized she was crying silently. A tear dropped onto her hand, surprising her. She wiped her face quickly. "You ever been so scared your body just leaks without your permission?" That was Elena. A soft knock sounded at the door. "Come in," she croaked. The door opened. Marcus stepped inside. He looked different from the man at the head of the table earlier. Tired, but also sharper, like something in him had woken up. Elena shot to her feet. I'm sorry, sir," she blurted. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. If I misunderstood anything, I'll—" "Stop," he said gently, holding up a hand. She fell silent. He closed the door behind him and stepped further into the room. Naomi wasn't with him. It was just the two of them. "I wanted to speak to you alone first," he said, "before lawyers get involved, before this becomes something else." Elena's heart hammered. She nodded jerkily. "Okay," she whispered. He studied her for a moment. "How long have you been working in the office?" he asked. "About a month," she said. "N.A. Ms. Blake arranged it, so I could save for school." And how long have you lived on my property? He asked. Since I was 10, she replied. My mom's been your housekeeper for 13 years. He nodded slowly. So you've seen a lot, he said. My house, my people, my habits. Elena wasn't sure if it was a question or a statement. A bit, she said carefully. He smiled faintly, just for a second. Naomi says you're brilliant, he said. She says if we don't help you get to college, someone else will, and we'll just look stupid. A startled laugh escaped Elena's throat despite herself. Naomi's very kind, she said. She's very honest, Marcus corrected. Kindness is optional. Honesty is not. At least not in my inner circle. He paused. Tell me, in your own words, he said slowly, why you spoke up today, knowing it could cost you everything. Elena took a deep breath. She'd been thinking about that question all day. I grew up watching you on TV, she said, feeling ridiculous as she said it but pushing on. Talking about innovation, about fairness, about giving kids like me a chance. A blush rose in her cheeks. I know you're not perfect, she added quickly. Rich people never are. But I always thought you were one of the better ones. My mom did too. Marcus listened, expression unreadable. So when I started working here, Elena continued, and I saw those drafts with Orion Holdings, I got curious. The numbers didn't match what you said publicly. And when I overheard Mr. Harrington and Mr. Pierce talking about once the folder is switched, She shook her head, searching for words. It felt wrong, she finished simply, like watching someone pickpocket a person who thinks they are among friends. Her eyes filled with tears. And I thought about my mom, she said. How hard she works. How she believes in you. And I thought, if someone was about to do something like that to her, I would want someone in the room to say something, even if they were scared, even if they were just the housekeeper's kid. She swallowed hard. So I did, she said. And if that means I'm fired, I'll deal with that. She lifted her chin. I won't apologize for telling the truth, she added quietly. The room felt very still. For a long time, Marcus said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. You're right, he said. Elena blinked. About what? She asked. About everything, he said. About the numbers. About the clauses. About Orion. About the betrayal. Her breath caught. So the contract was absolutely not what I thought it was, he said, his jaw tight. And I'll be having very long conversations with Mr. Harrington and Mr. Pierce, most of them involving other lawyers, not mine. He exhaled. If you hadn't spoken up, he continued, I would have signed. I would have handed over controlling interest in my company to a man who smiled in my face while sharpening a knife behind my back. He looked at her directly. You didn't destroy my life today, he said. You saved it. Elena's knees went weak. She stammered. But You took a risk most people in that room wouldn't have taken, he said. You were the lowest paid person there, with the most to lose, and you were the only one who told me the truth. He shook his head, almost in disbelief. That says more about my company than it does about you, he murmured. Elena stared at him. So, I'm not fired, she asked, half joking, half desperate. A real smile tugged at his mouth. No, he said. You're not fired. Relief crashed over her so hard she nearly sobbed. Thank you, she whispered, tears spilling over. But, he added, you may want to prepare your mother for some changes. Her heart lurched. Changes. In a good way, he clarified quickly. Rosa is going to try to resign out of guilt for raising a daughter who speaks too much. Elena let out a watery laugh. She already thinks that, she said. Marcus's eyes softened. I won't accept her resignation, he said, but I may offer her few hours in cleaning, and more in supervising, if she's willing. He hesitated. And as for you, he went on, we'll talk about your role here, and your schooling. I can't promise to fix everything, but I can promise you're not going to be punished for choosing honesty over comfort. He stepped closer. You did something very few people have the courage to do, he said quietly. Don't let anyone make you feel small for it. Elena wiped her cheeks. "Thank you, sir," she said again. He tilted his head. "And Elena?" "Yes." "You never call yourself just anything again," he said. "Not just the housekeeper's daughter. Not just an intern. Understood?" She nodded, throat tight. "Yes," she whispered. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "And for what it's worth," he said, "if you ever decide you want to practice corporate law instead of just helping with admin, I know a few people." He left her standing there, stunned. The fallout was messy. Deals don't die quietly. Harrington Global released a statement blaming internal miscommunication for the collapse of the merger. Rumors swirled in the press. Anonymous leaks. Sources inside Ellington Systems say. But the most important parts happened quietly, behind closed doors. Pierce was let go. Not let go like a gentle drift into retirement. Terminated. Investigated. His name scratched off office doors and legal documents. Cole Harrington tried to spin things his way. He insisted the Orion Clause was a contingency structure, not a power grab. He told anyone who'd listen that Marcus had become paranoid and ungrateful. But in private arbitration, with documents and footage as evidence, the story was clear. He tried to outsmart a friend. He'd gotten burned. His reputation took a hit. Not enough to destroy him. Men like that rarely disappear completely, but enough that he wasn't quite as shiny anymore. He stopped appearing in glossy interviews, started showing up in slightly smaller rooms. And Ellington Systems, it survived. Barely. The near-miss shipped the company. The board demanded answers. Policy changes. More checks and balances. But it stayed under Marcus's control, because a 19-year-old girl refused to pretend she didn't see. At the mansion, Rosa had the worst 30 minutes of her life when Elena finally came home that night. There were tears, raised voices, hugs so tight they hurt. You could have been fired. Rosa cried. They could have called the police. You could have ruined everything. I know. Elena cried back. But he would have signed it, Mom. They almost stole his company. I couldn't just. I wanted to protect you, Rosa sobbed. Not watch you throw yourself in front of wolves. I wasn't alone, Elena said, choking up. Naomi helped. And Mr. Ellington, he believed me. Rosa drew back, eyes wide. Did, she whispered. Elena nodded. He said I saved him, she said. He said I shouldn't call myself just anything. Rosa covered her mouth with her hand. Then, slowly, she sank into a chair. Tears ran down her cheeks. Sometimes, she whispered, I forget you are not that little girl hiding behind my legs anymore. You are bigger than my fear for you. She reached out and took Elena's hand. You scare me, she said, voice trembling. But you also make me proud. Elena pressed her forehead to her mother's. I was scared too, she admitted. I still am. But if you taught me anything, it's that cleaning up after other people's messes doesn't mean we have to pretend not to see them. Right? Rosa laughed through tears. I taught you that, she asked. Well, you also taught me to keep my head down, which I ignored, Elena said, smiling weakly. So we're even. They sat there like that for a long time. Just a mother and daughter. No billionaires. No contracts. No boardrooms. Just two people who had survived another day. Months passed. Life didn't magically turn into a fairy tale. That's not how real stories go. But little by little, things changed. Elena received an official scholarship from the Ellington Foundation, a fund Marcus expanded after everything that happened. It wasn't charity. It was an investment. He told her that himself, over coffee in the kitchen one afternoon, when he stopped by the staff house unannounced. People like you are the reason people like me should never feel too comfortable, he said, stirring sugar into his mug. You asked questions you weren't supposed to. That's exactly what good lawyers and leaders do. I'd be a fool not to support that. Rosa almost dropped the plate she was holding when she saw the billionaire sitting at her tiny kitchen table. He insisted on washing his own cup afterward. It was awkward, and human, and strangely healing. Naomi became more than a boss. She became a mentor. She helped Elena navigate university applications, course selections, internships. She introduced her to people who didn't just see the housekeeper's daughter, but saw potential. In the office, policies changed. Interns and junior staff were given clearer channels to express concerns without being steamrolled. The company started holding ethics town halls. Most people rolled their eyes at first, but slowly, the culture shifted, just a bit. And in boardrooms, someone occasionally thought, what if the person bringing the coffee here is more than we think? What if they're the only honest one in the room? Years later, Elena would walk into a glass-walled office wearing a suit of her own. Not expensive at first, a little off the rack, but hers. She'd have a nameplate that read, Elena Martinez, Corporate Counsel, Compliance and Ethics, Ellington Systems. She'd help draft contracts instead of just carrying them. She'd sit at the table instead of standing by the wall. And every time someone tried to slip in a clause that smelled like betrayal, she'd remember the day she saw them switch the folder, the day she decided to speak, the day everything changed. Sometimes, when new interns came in, nervous, overwhelmed, trying to be invisible, she'd take one aside and say, listen, you're not just anything. If you see something that doesn't feel right, ask. If you need someone to listen, I will. That's literally my job. And if you're still here with me, still listening to this story, I want to ask you something now. Have you ever been in a room where something wrong was happening, and everyone pretended not to see? Did you speak up? Did you stay silent? What would you have done if you'd been Elena that day? Would you have risked your job, your home, your mother's livelihood, just to stop a signature from hitting paper? Tell me in the comments. Because stories like this aren't just about billionaires and boardrooms. They're about you, your choices, your courage. Sometimes, the people with the least power on paper have the most power in truth, if they choose to use it. One evening, long after the worst was behind them, Elena and Marcus stood on the balcony of the headquarters building, looking out at the city. He was older now, more lines on his face. She was older too, more sure of herself. You know, he said, for years, I thought my biggest asset was my vision, my ability to see what others didn't. He glanced at her. Turns out my biggest asset was the people who saw what I refused to see, he said. Like you. Elena smiled. Even billionaires need reality checks, she said lightly. He chuckled. Especially billionaires, he agreed. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then he asked, do you ever regret it? Speaking up that day. Elena thought about the fear, the tears, the late nights, the pressure, the knowledge that she'd almost watched a man lose everything because he trusted the wrong people. She thought about her mother, now working as household manager instead of just a cleaner, her back hurting a little less, her voice carrying a little more authority. She thought about the interns she mentored, the clauses she'd flagged, the deals she'd helped keep honest. She shook her head. Not for a second, she said. He nodded. Good, he replied, because neither do I. He looked out at the city again. You know what scares me now? He added quietly. What? She asked. The idea that for every room where someone like you speaks up, he said, there are 100 where no one does. Elena followed his gaze. Then we just have to make more noise, she said. Teach more people they're allowed to say, wait, that's not right. Even if they're the last ones anyone expects to speak. He smiled. Maybe that should be our next project, he said. Teaching people not to be just anything. She laughed. I'm in, she said. If you've watched this far, first of all, thank you. Second, let this story be a reminder of a few simple truths. Honesty is risky. Silence is expensive. Power isn't just about who sits at the head of the table. It's also about who's brave enough to clear their throat at the edge of the room and say, excuse me, but something's wrong. Sometimes, justice doesn't come from a judge or a headline. Sometimes, it comes from the housekeeper's daughter who refuses to pretend she didn't see the folder switch. If you believe people should be held accountable, no matter how rich, how charming, or how powerful they are, hit that like button. If you've ever felt small in a room where big decisions were made, but still chose to do the right thing, share your story in the comments. You never know who might need to hear it. And if you want more raw lifestyle stories like this, about courage, betrayal, second chances, and the quiet heroes nobody expects, make sure you subscribe. Because the next time someone thinks they can get away with something in a room where no one important is watching, They might just find out that the quietest person there is the one who changes everything.